Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Galli. The cult of Cybele likely originated in Mesopotamia roughly 2,500 years ago, maybe even more. Scholars believe it then traveled to Greece around 300 BC and arrived in Rome within the century. The Romans called it the cult of Magna Mater, and it was one of the strangest to ever gain popularity in the Old Republic. The cult members were called Galli, and they worshipped the goddess Cybele. She was the deity of fertility, animals, plants, and the mother of all things. In Rome, they called her the Great Mother. She was accepted as an official goddess and allowed to be a state religion in 204 BC. Much like the incredibly popular cult of Dionysus, the cult of Cybele spread throughout the Roman Republic like wildfire. Although it was officially recognized by the state, it was still extremely frowned upon by the Senate and many ordinary people. This is because there was a lot of distrust around the cultists themselves, who did some things that were perceived as strange 2,000 years ago. The priests were men who dressed in women's clothing. They castrated themselves and violated the Roman gender norms. Many believed the Galli cultists were trying to lure young men in and brainwash them. In truth, the cult was just something the Romans didn't understand. Each priest castrated themselves on the Day of Blood as part of a holy ritual in which they fell into a divine frenzy. The cult spread as far as Britain. Archaeologists uncovered altars to Cybele all the way at Hadrian's Wall, the furthest extent of the empire. The Galli spread throughout Europe, bringing worship of their mother goddess with them wherever they went. But with most religions, the cult of Cybele died out with the rise of Christianity. Number 9. Mysterious Assyrian Carving. Archaeologists in northern Iraq found a very mysterious collection of stone carvings from 2,700 years ago. The beautiful marble reliefs were found while experts were restoring the legendary Mashki Gate from the ancient kingdom of Assyria. The Mashki Gate was once the main entrance to the grand city of Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. It would have been a truly marvelous thing to behold nearly 3,000 years ago, a megalithic structure standing at the forefront of one of the greatest cities in the world. It was while American and Iraqi archaeologists were restoring this mythical gate that they came across 8 marble slabs. These slabs are decorated in intricately carved images of warriors, palm trees, and grapevines. Researchers believe they were likely carved during the reign of the mighty king Sennacherib, who ruled over Assyria between 705 and 681 BC. Archaeologist Michael Dante from the University of Pennsylvania said the discovery was like a dream. No one had any idea they would find such amazingly preserved pieces of artwork from so long ago. The huge marble slabs decorated the king's palace up until his death. At that point, they were likely moved to the city gate for everyone to see. Because they were partially buried, the parts that were underground remained well preserved until modern archaeologists could dig them up. Number 8. The Siberian Valley of the Kings. Most people have heard of the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, but not many know about the Siberian Valley of the Kings. It's a fantastic place with treasures and human burials dating back 2,500 years. A team of scientists recently investigated the Siberian Valley of the Kings in northern Tuva, located within the Russian Federation. It's believed the site was used by the nomadic people known as the Scythians, who roamed the Central Asian steppes between the 8th and 7th centuries BC. They were fierce warriors and deadly assassins on horseback. They were also likely the inspiration behind the legend of the Amazonian women warriors. The thing about the Scythians is that historians agree their women were just as fearsome as fighters as their men. The most recent discovery here was of a tomb. It contained the wooden burial chamber of a 50-year-old woman and a small child. They were buried with golden ornaments and iron treasures, along with a very valuable bronze mirror. Archaeologists also identified treasures scattered throughout the area, likely disturbed by heavy plowing back when the valley was all farmland. They believe the woman was a Scythian noble, though there is nothing to suggest what her name was or what role she played in society. The child may have been hers, or it may have been a relative's. It's unclear how they died, or even if they died at the same time. It could be they both caught a sickness and perished, or that the child was sent to join the older woman in the afterlife. Number 7. Biblical warfare. The Earth's very own magnetic field is currently helping archaeologists to confirm biblical stories about the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. It works like this. Geophysicists can look at magnetic materials discovered at archaeological sites that had been heated or burned during the destruction of the site. For example, researchers looked at items from the city of Jerusalem and scrutinized their magnetic materials to recreate what the magnetic field looked like at the time the items were burned. They could then recreate that magnetic field to give them an indisputable date for the time of the burning. It's like radiocarbon dating, but way more complicated, and relies on understanding the magnetic field of the planet. The main thing you need to know is that researchers can look at burned material and know exactly when the burning took place. And that was how they were able to confirm that in the year 586 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon destroyed the first temple in Jerusalem and burned the city to the ground. That's confirmation of what the Bible says. They also tested the destruction of the Philistine city of Gath, the birthplace of Goliath, and once again confirmed the biblical narrative. More and more, we are seeing that biblical tales are real stories of what happened 2,500 years ago. And now for number 6. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to say a big thank you to Jennifer Ballesteri and Alex Travis for supporting this channel. If you are new here, welcome, and be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Origins Explained family. Number 6. Viking Burial Boat. Archaeologists in Norway uncovered one of the most spectacular Viking burial ships ever. It was 30 feet long and 5 feet wide. It's bigger than most other burial boats found in Norway, large enough to carry 6 men across huge bodies of water. They believe it belonged to a Viking of extremely high status. Experts with the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research were the ones that made the discovery. They used ground-penetrating radar to look beneath the surface, at which point they identified the mysterious Viking grave. Unfortunately, very little is known about the individual buried inside the boat. It's true that most Vikings who were entombed within a ship were elite members of the community, and so that's almost definitely true here as well. But we don't have a name, only the skeleton and the frame of the boat. It was likely buried around the year 800 AD, at the peak of the Viking Age. The burial itself is in a really peculiar situation. There are plans to build a new highway right over top of where it was found, and so the site has become a controversial subject. If the Norwegian government decides to continue with the highway, the boat will be excavated and preserved. But if they decide to make a detour, the boat will be left alone, reburied, and lost again. Number 5. The Sanctuary of Despotiko. One of the most important modern discoveries made in Greece is the Sanctuary of Despotiko. The site was originally found in 1997 when archaeologists uncovered an ancient settlement and a temple to the sun god Apollo. But excavations have been ongoing ever since, with a lot of new finds being made over the years. The earliest human activity on the island goes back to the Iron Age and continued until the island reached its peak prosperity in the 6th century BC. It was during that time that the great temple to Apollo was built, along with other ceremonial buildings that are now nothing but ruins. Researchers believe the island was once significantly larger. It's currently separated from the island of Antiparos by a thin strip of water about 3 feet deep. Thousands of years ago, the islands would have been connected as one large landmass. The Sanctuary of Despotiko was so much more than just a religious complex where people gave praise to the old Greek gods. It was an island settlement complete with a water management system, roads and houses where priests and other people would have lived. One of the most interesting discoveries made was in 2016, when archaeologists found the corpse of a worker buried at the North Temple wall. Researchers think he died during construction and then was thrown into a shallow grave underneath the same wall he died building. Number 4. Sardinia's Beehive Towers. On the Italian island of Sardinia, there are giant stone towers that have been standing since around 1600 BC. They look like large beehives, conical pillars the locals call nuraghi. They almost look like crumbling sandcastles that could disintegrate at any minute, and some of them already have. They were made by a highly advanced civilization by carefully stacking stones, some of which weigh several tons each. There are not just a few of these beehive towers on the island, there are over 7,000. Sardinia is the second biggest island in the Mediterranean Sea, and it is dotted with an unimaginable number of towers. There are so many that it doesn't seem realistic. Why were they built? What purpose did they serve? And why aren't they found anywhere else in the world? Unfortunately, archaeologists do not have the answers to these questions. All we know is that they were built by the ancient Nuragic civilization. Some believe they were meant to be fortifications, part of an immense security system, and others say they were storage towers for food. The theories go on and on. It could be an astronomical observatory, tower dwelling, place of mysterious worship. The towers were a central part of life in Sardinia for centuries, but despite the best effort of scientists, their secrets are still lost. Number 3. The King's Grave. The King's Grave is one of the most mysterious burial plots in Scandinavia. It's located about 1,000 feet from the eastern coast of Scania, a double burial site from the Bronze Age. The reason it's so famous, at least in Sweden, is that the burial is unusually grand. It's enormous at 250 feet in diameter and adorned with magical petroglyphs depicting people, fish, birds, ships, chariots, horses, and all kinds of things. This was not typical for 1400 BC when the tomb was created. Nothing like it has ever been found in Sweden, and no other local burial from the Bronze Age even remotely compares to it in terms of size. It's also a mystery as to who was buried in it. Some farmers discovered the site in 1748. Nobody really cared though, and so the site was pillaged for its stone and suffered a lot of damage. A thorough investigation didn't take place for almost 200 years, and by then, almost everything was gone. The only thing archaeologists could find were some pieces of teeth and fragments of bronze. It had likely been filled with mass amounts of treasures, but most of that treasure had been looted. The tomb was recently restored, but no one knows if the team put it back together properly. It might look nothing like it did when it was built 3,400 years ago. Number 2. Roman Villa in England. Experts working with the Kent Archaeological Society in England uncovered a Roman villa complex. The major archaeological find was made thanks to Google Earth. The markings of a lost site were found looking through the app, and then volunteers and real archaeologists went to investigate. They excavated and came across the Roman villa. They found the main building, a luxurious bathhouse, and an old central heating system. The heating system is the most impressive part of the whole find. It's called the hypocaust system, and it was wildly expensive. It required a constant supply of firewood and a labor force to operate. Wood would be burned inside an enclosed system, which then pushed heat through ceramic floor tiles and through the walls, keeping the villa warm in wintertime. The only dangerous part was that the villa needed to be properly sealed, or smoke from the fire could leak inside and kill everyone. The villa was likely from around the 4th century AD, but they weren't the first ones to live on the land. The area around it had been farmed as early as 3900 BC. It wasn't until the Romans showed up that such luxurious structures with central heating were built. Number 1. Black Death survivors. 700 years ago, the bubonic plague swept through Europe and killed a lot of people. Nobody knows for sure how many, and the estimates vary. Some say 25%, some say 50% of the population. It killed a lot of people, and would have been the equivalent to if COVID-19 killed 4 billion today. But we're here to talk about the survivors of the Black Death. Researchers recently completed a study analyzing DNA from medieval people in the 1300s. They learned that those who survived the plague did so because of certain mutations. Those mutations are linked to autoimmune diseases, currently affecting people right now. Those who survived the Black Death in Europe had what researchers have called a good variant of the gene ERAP2. Professor of genetic medicine Luis Barreiro at the University of Chicago Medical Center had this to say. He claims this is the first study that shows the Black Death as a selective pressure in the evolution of our immune system. Those with the good variant of the ERAP2 had a better chance of surviving the Black Plague. But those who inherited that gene currently have a higher chance of suffering from Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and even lupus. Modern humans who inherited the plague-resistant mutations are now getting the short end of the stick. But why in the world is that? It's because ERAP2 helps the immune system to recognize alien microbes and attack them. This has, through the centuries, resulted in autoimmune diseases in which the immune system gets so overexcited it attacks healthy tissues. If this study is correct, we have the Black Death to blame. Thanks for watching! What do you think life was like for survivors of the Black Death? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like these. See you later! Bye!